Lifelong Memphian, born and raised in Memphis. Went away to school in Dallas, Texas, and moved back from college in 1986 and went to work at Morgan Keegan as a stockbroker in January of 1987. I was with Morgan Keegan until 2000. In 2000, I left to go work at Service Over Self, which is an urban home repair ministry, and was there for 5 years. In that span of time, met my wife Kelly and got married and have 4 daughters, May, Annie, Ruthie, and Mary Van. And we were at SOS from 2000 to 05, and then in 05 we left and spent a couple of years in China, came home in 2007, and now working as the director of the Memphis Teacher Residency Program. I think this journey of generosity, journey of trying to be faithful and obedient in matters of money and generosity really obviously began with my conversion. Became a Christian when I was 24 in 1988. And shortly after that, I had an incredibly impactful lunch with a guy named Soup Campbell at Wendy's on Poplar, and I still remember it vividly. And he shared with me a verse at that lunch, which is Isaiah 50, verse 4, that says, "The sovereign Lord has given me an instructed tongue to know the word that sustains the weary. Morning by morning he awakens me. He awakens me as one who is to be taught." I don't remember anything else that we talked about at that lunch. I just remember now looking back on it. I went home, shared with my wife that verse, and I realized up to that point I'd never had a real mentor, a spiritual leader in my life, and I read that verse and I recognized that God is promising me, He's offering me a relationship where He Himself would be my teacher, my mentor. And so that began a journey really of spending daily morning time with God. And just shortly after that, I also read this little bitty pamphlet on how to study the Bible, and I don't remember much about it except point number 1. And point number 1 says, when you study the Bible, you read it from a perspective of whatever it says, I'm going to believe, and whatever it tells me to do, I'm going to obey. And coming to God's Word with that perspective and that heart has absolutely changed everything, has been obviously the real catalyst to the life that we've tried to live as a family since that point. I was reading in the book of Leviticus, and I came across this concept of the sabbatical year, which is just simply this idea of once every 7 years, God had called the Israelites to not plant and harvest, but just to eat off what the land grew on its own, and then also for your fields to be open for the poor to come and glean from your fields. And I read that, and that struck me as this image that could be applied to life today, to my life. And I began to pray and talk to my wife about what if we implemented a sabbatical year in our own life. And my prayer to God was that, Lord, I don't want the tithe to be a bribe in my life, and I want you to know that I love you more than I love money. And the way that I wanted to work that out was just to take a calendar year and apply the sabbatical year in our own life as a family. We just decided we were going to take a year and just only spend money on what it takes to live. And so we just added up what's the house note and what are the groceries and what's some minimum amount budget for clothing. We're not going to take any big trips. We're going to just live a modest life for us. And so with that year, we were married and had 2 kids, and it was $5,000 a month. And so we just I get paid a monthly check, and whatever came in that month was more than $5,000. We would leave $5,000 in the checking account for that month, and then everything that was over and above that, we would sit down at the kitchen table once a month and have a little family missions meeting. What do we want to do with it? Where we want to send it? Who do we want to give it to? And part of the beauty of that was it was a sizable enough amount of money that you felt like I don't have to just give this to 501c3 organizations. I mean, we can use money to bless people and families that are in need without really any concern about whether I get a tax deduction for this. So that was kind of the structure that we put in place for the sabbatical year. Just prior to that sabbatical year, I got a phone call from a man in mid-December. Never met him before, and he had gotten my name from a friend. And he asked me if I would come and meet with him on Monday, January 3rd to talk to him about his investments. He wasn't happy where they were, and he was going to move them. He was interviewing 3 different brokers over the course of a month and then would let us know. So on Monday, January 3rd, I go to his office, first day of the new year, first meeting of the new year, and I arrive at his office about 10 minutes early, and I just sat in my car and I prayed, and I just asked the Lord and told him, I said, this really means nothing to me. If this guy becomes a client, it has no effect and impact on me or my income or my standard of living. Everything that I make over and above is all going to you anyway, so this is your deal. Do what you want, Lord. And so I went into his office, and he gave me the exact same spiel. He said, David, I'm meeting with 3 guys. You're the first one. I have a meeting in 2 weeks, and meeting 2 weeks after that. After I meet with all of y'all, I'll let you know where I'm going to put my money. And then I'll never forget it. He reaches over and he points at me and he says, all right, you start talking. And so I started talking, and literally, I swear to you, I went about 30 seconds. And I remember saying something about interest rates and feeling like interest rates were going lower. And before I completed one entire sentence, he goes, stop right there. And he picks up his phone and he calls the secretary and says, Barbara, come in here with my statements right now. And he lays the statements down and he asked me, he says, do you bring any of those transfer forms with you? And I said, yes, sir. He said, hand them over. Signed them all, gave them to me. He said, that money will get with you in 10 days. You call me when it gets to you and we'll talk. And I went out in the parking lot and I got in my car and I just began to weep in my car. And I knew exactly what had happened. I knew that God had heard our prayers, seen our life, and had decided to just affirm us. Shortly after that, we would always shop at the same grocery store, and we had met a lady there by the name of Krissa. And Krissa couldn't speak and couldn't hear, and we just befriended her. And one day in February of that year, we were leaving the parking lot, and my wife and I and the kids were in the car, and Krissa pulled into the parking lot, and we looked back and saw that her back windshield had been broken out, and so she had plastic and duct tape on her back windshield. And we knew exactly what we had an opportunity to do. We just looked at each other and smiled. We got home, picked up the phone, called Jack Morris Auto Glass, told them what kind of car it was, what the car looked like, and had them come and fix her window while she was working. Well, about 3 months later, we get a handwritten letter from Krissa, and it's about 5 pages, and it at the end of it, it says this. It says, David and Kelly, were you the ones that fixed my windshield? I know that it was you. It had to be you. She said, my back windshield had been broken out for over a year, and I've been saving money for an entire year to try to have enough to fix my back windshield. And there have been a couple of times in the last year that I've had enough money to fix the windshield, but I've always used that money to buy groceries for those who are less fortunate than I was. And I have prayed every single day for a year that God would fix my windshield. And now he has. And Kelly and I sat in the kitchen and read that letter over and over, and we just wept again because we knew exactly what had happened. We knew that God had broken into time and space and history in our life and in the life of Krissa and revealed himself to us. And I remember thinking at the time, which would I rather have? Would I rather have the $400 back that I spent to fix her windshield, or would I rather have a history, a story, a destiny with God? The month of January of that sabbatical year, as it turns out, happened to be the most productive financial month I'd ever have in my career. And so the commissions that you earn in the month of January get paid to you in the first week of February. And so one of the real challenges were that first paycheck of the year was several times more money than I'd ever made in any one month. In fact, I remember we got a paycheck for $75,000, and $5,000 of that is staying in the checking account. And so it's like, this is a year's income all of a sudden coming in 1 month. Are we really going to do this? Or are we going to find a way to rationalize this to be meaningful but not give away all this kind of money? When the year ended, I think both Kelly and I realized that it was the most magical year of our life. I mean, to be quite honest, certainly the year of most spiritual growth we've ever had. And I think the one thought that we both had when the year ended was, we can never go back. You just can't go back to kind of living the normal life.